Let's welcome Jake Penny to the Be the Solution podcast. Jake, over the last 7 years, main focus has been investing in communities by renovating and redeveloping distressed assets. By investing in his local community, Jake not only creates new jobs, but also beautiful properties that are unique to the area and affordable for individuals to call home. Part of his passion and mission is to teach people how to get out of the chaos of Wall Street and start investing in Main Street. Investing in Main Street is tangible. One can earn better than average returns and makes a social impact on the community. Jake was recently featured on DIY Network's First Time Flippers and has been a guest speaker at real estate events in the local Philadelphia metro market. He exceeds expectations in the world of capital raising, investor relations, and property acquisition. Jake resides in the southeastern part of Pennsylvania with Leanna, his business partner, and his life partner. They both enjoy adventures with their dogs and traveling and giving back to the community.
I wanted to be in a business that I did not have a ceiling. Take a pen and a piece of paper, draw a line, draw another line next to it. At 365 days, if you drew 365 lines, you started here with one line, but look how far you've come.
Welcome, Jake Penny, to the Be the Solution podcast. How are you doing today, Jake?
Good, Maria. Thank you for having me on.
Excellent. I am looking forward to our conversation today.
Likewise.
Awesome. So let's dive right in. So, Jake, I always like to ask my guests a little bit about their background and history. So how'd you get into the real estate space?
So I got into real estate back in 2016. More so how I got into it was I grew up in just a regular working class family, no investment experience whatsoever. And as a kid growing up, I always saw my father work really, really hard all the time. And I'd wake up in the morning, he wouldn't be there sometimes, and I would go to bed and he wouldn't be there sometimes. And I always saw how much hours he put into his job, and thinking to myself, knowing the person that he worked for and how much money they had and the big house they had and the nice things they had, I was like, man, my dad is grinding all the time to put a roof over myself and my mom's head, but necessarily isn't rewarded fully for the output that he brings and the value that he brings to that company. So from a young age, I always wanted to do something different than, the typical avenue. And he had some friends that were friends of that business owner, and they had a title company. They owned apartment buildings. They owned property management companies, landscaping companies. And I always said, thought to myself, well, after getting a little bit older and reading a little bit, and I found out that real estate was the pillar of majority of wealth in our country. And I didn't even know where to get started with it. Didn't come from a silver spoon family. So fortunately, my dad helped me create a landscaping company when I was 13. He said, you're not going to work for minimum wage. You're going to go out door knock in the neighborhood and get lawns to cut. And I started that at 13 years old and started building up a nice portfolio of lawns, whether that was grass cutting or mulching, tree trimming, doing stone work, things of that nature. And I had a lot of my friends work for me throughout high school, and started saving up money so that I could eventually invest in real estate. And when I was 21 years old, bought 3 properties in my first month in real estate after actually dropping out of college to go all the way into it. Attended one of those free seminar things that they rope you in to sell you a big package for, not so free. And that's where it all began in 2016.
Wow. So you left college to go all in on real estate.
Yeah. So I always wanted to help people. So I didn't necessarily know if that was going to be through business or in pre-med. And I definitely did not have the book smarts to do pre-med. So that didn't work out. So I re-enrolled into business school. And what I learned from business school is that they weren't teaching you how to run a business. They were teaching you how to run someone else's business. And that, going back to when I was younger, I didn't want to be under someone else's command and control from growing up and seeing that firsthand. So that's when I pulled back. My partner at the time and partner today was like, hey, you always wanted to get in real estate. We're going to go to this free training event, see what it's all about. We went there. They wound up selling us a $3,000 package that wasn't so free. Went to that. And that was wound up being another pitch too for their platinum package, which was like $32,000. Yeah, and that's pretty much how it all began. And got 3 houses under contract in the first month that we were actually like all in on real estate. At the time, we thought we were all in, and it just had the deposits from landscaping. I didn't know where the money was coming from to close or anything like that. So that was figuring that out was a whole nother aspect for getting started in real estate.
So you put 3 properties under contract and you didn't know yet where you were getting the money?
No, not at all. No, I was just a new guy that thought that I could just drive up to any local bank in my neighborhood and say, hey, I got these awesome deals. They're sweet assets. Look how much they make. Look at the flip chart. It's going to make 20% returns. I didn't know you actually had to have tax returns and W-2s and all that stuff and be able to the debt cert, like with a DTI, debt to income ratio and all that stuff. And I got denied and every single local bank, every credit union. And I was like, what is going on? Why are the banks denying me? Well, I never had a tax return up to that date ever. And I never had a W-2 because I just worked for myself throughout high school and throughout college a little bit. Yeah. So then I got turned on this thing called hard money, but it was more so like a local loan shark. It was definitely not a hard money lender. This guy was a random accountant I met, and he wasn't necessarily the cleanest accountant out there. So we do all the loan docs to borrow money from him. And about 4 days before closing on these properties, he called and said, hey, I can no longer fund these deals. I have a big oil deal to fund that's going to take all my capital from all my investors. I have to pull out. So mind you, at this point in time, we already extended the closing once already. So I had to come with additional money, earnest money deposits to extend that loan, to extend that closing. So now between all 3 of them, I had like $50,000 earnest money deposit on the line that I was going to lose if I could not close in the next 4 days. So this is where I picked up the phone and started learning about private capital, private money, and started calling family, friends, and folks, not fools, folks or acquaintances, and wind up raising the money to close on those properties.
So
and
what did you say to them?
Oh man, it was, I didn't have a pitch at the time. I didn't really have a presentation or what. I was like, hey, my neck is on the line pretty much. I'm about to lose $50,000. I do not want to lose that. Have faith in me. I'll give you a return on your money secured by the property. And it wound up being my grandmother and a cousin that had money, and they bailed us out of that transaction and wind up being lenders on those deals. And thank God it was only 4 days before closing. I don't know how it all panned out, but the universe works in mysterious ways.
That indeed it does. So tell me, so what happened with these first 3 deals? Where are you with them today? What kind of returns did you provide grandma and cousin? You did yet? I don't know.
So those deals were fix and flips in the suburbs of Philadelphia, outside in Delaware County. And they were just fix and flips that we were doing. We offered, grandma and the cousin, like a mortgage, a promissory note, confession of judgment, a guarantee and suretyship. These are all security instruments that back your investment in real estate. And, we gave them at the time, I think it was like an 8% return, right? Money is way more expensive than that now. But it was just like, hey, we were like, hey, what are you getting on your investments now in the stock market? We'll beat it. So they weren't really earning much in the stock market. So it panned out to be 8% or maybe 10%, something like that. But yeah, those deals went good. We got them done and we exited them, and we learned not to trust shady loan shark people. And we learned about hard money and raising private capital.
So your first entree into private capital was out of sheer desperation in getting these deals to the table.
Yep. And it just kind of forced us into that world of, raising money from the get-go, going to family, friends, acquaintances, building an investor database. And from there, we realized, hey, we can't go to traditional banks anymore. Well, we never could. They just don't fund these types of transactions. And if they do, they want your firstborn child or something like that. They want crazy extensive paperwork. So we were just forced down that road to, hey, we have to do this private capital thing. It's the only way it's going to work.
So are they investing with money from 401k or life insurance or just cash?
A variety of things. The investors that invest with us or that we teach on how they can invest into real estate, they'll invest from a variety of things. 401ks, self-directed IRAs, HSAs, which is a health savings account. If they have children, they'll invest out of an ESA, educational savings account, or they'll use something like a whole life insurance policy that has cash value. You can also pull a home equity line of credit on their primary residence or an investment property and make the difference between what they're getting charged from the bank and what they're charging the borrower. Or it's just, a money market account where they have cash sitting in there and they don't want it sitting on the sidelines earning money at a low interest rate, and they want to put it to work in Main Street.
It's awesome. So how many investors do you have in your pool now?
I would definitely, it's a good amount. The specific number off my top of my head, I'm not too sure as right this second, but I will say that we are opening 2 more funds to raise more capital and help more individuals out.
That's awesome. Quite a story such far. So I want to ask you a question. So it's been a short time. It's only 6 years that you're
7
years.
Years. Yeah.
Right. So what did you have to get through to get to where you are now? What did you have to overcome?
There's a lot. One, being a young individual in the real estate industry, getting started with fix and flipping. The first hurdle right off the gate is the majority of the industry is, more seasoned investors. At that time, real estate wasn't cool until I feel like the past couple of years. So being young,
now it's becoming uncool again. So it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the time to shine. So a lot of the people in the industry were they did not believe in what we could do because we were so young, 20, 21 years old, just still living with mom and dad at the time, not really having any financial backing, not even having jobs. So they were always like, how are you going to close on this? They didn't take it seriously. Contractors saw that we were the young people. So they're like, oh man, that's an easy theft. We can easily steal their money and run off on the job. So it was a lot of stuff to come over in the beginning between getting that authority, getting that people to know, like, and trust you and see that you're serious about this business. And then also the trials and tribulations of contractors as well. And that was a huge hurdle to overcome, because getting started, they saw us as pretty much fresh bait. We got burned by a lot of contractors in the beginning, running off on jobs, not finishing the work or doing subpar work and not honoring the quality. So there was times in the beginning where we almost lost everything, to be honest. We had 6 flips going at the time, and this was all at once. And next thing you know, we have on three of the jobs, 3 of the projects, between 3 different contractors, we had about, $50,000 to $60,000 stolen from us. And that, partially our fault and partially their fault of not having the right agreements in place, not having the proper draw schedules or anything like that. And it almost sunk us. So we didn't have any money to recoup that at the time. I was just landscaping, cutting grass still at that time. I maxed out all my credit cards to try to finish these projects. And between the interest payments, the insurance, the taxes, the cost of construction, and the credit card debt that I had to pay every single month, I couldn't do it. So my credit score went down from a 780 to a 400. And totally, we couldn't even pay our truck bill. Thank God we were living at home at the time because, our parents helped us out with food and whatnot. And I went to somebody and I said, hey, I would love to, let you in on an opportunity that's not so shiny from the outside right now. I need funds to finish these projects. And that individual said, no, sell everything, take it as a learning experience, go get a job and work off that debt for the rest of your life. And mind you, it was over $500,000 at 21 years old. So I was very, very mad at that. Because I'm like, I'm not giving up. I'm not going and doing the normal thing. How can I figure this out? So between both of our fathers, they said, hey, you're not really a handyman, but you're going to learn today. So they strapped us up with tools, and we wound up finishing all 6 of those projects as partners. Leanna, who's my partner in real estate and life, and then my father, and then her father. We wind up learning how to swing a hammer and do the best that we could to get those projects done and make whole in those investments and take that as a learning experience so that we can move forward and grow from there.
Wow. It's a lot to unpack. Lot of stuff. How did you feel?
How did I feel? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like the world was coming down on me, and especially like my dreams more so. I always dreamed of being a real estate investor, and I kind of left a little part out, was getting started. The whole entrepreneur investor mindset also started at the age of 14. So my Aunt Donna would always talk. She worked in the tax department for DuPont, and she would always talk about like Warren Buffett, Peter Lynch, these big hedge fund figures on Wall Street. And so I started reading books about trading in Wall Street at a young age. And my parents, I had them open me a brokerage account with TD Ameritrade at 14 years old. So they co-signed and opened it was their account. However, like so all the money I made from landscaping would go into that account, and I would trade stocks, and I'd buy Apple and, learn to invest. I was probably speculating at that time because 14 years old, what do you really know about, markets and stuff like that? But hey, I wanted to be an investor. So that's what I thought was the right way. So come down, with that vision and that mindset growing up my whole life, I always wanted to be a wealthy investor. So, coming back to the 2016-ish, when we had this meltdown, it was like, man, this is going to crush me. What's going to happen to my dreams? Am I going to have to be under the hand of somebody else for the rest of my life? So I wasn't going to take no for an answer, and I wasn't going to let it, stop my dreams.
What was it like having to learn how to swing a hammer and sleeves? And you don't really look like a hammer swinger, Jake. No
Definitely
offense.
not. No way. So you nailed it on the head. All right. So obviously doing all that, I learned from my father and Leanna's father. So they're handy. They're really good at what they do. But more so, like, when I went and did stuff like on our own, it wasn't too good. So one of the properties we were actually keeping as a rental. So 2 of them were flips. 1 was a rental. And we wound up finishing that one up. I installed a bunch of cabinets in the kitchen. Little did I know, what I didn't know was what a stud was. So here I am with a bunch of cabinets, screwing screws in the back of the cabinet into plain drywall, not into a stud whatsoever. Tenants move in. At that time, we had a property manager for our rentals. Right now, we're all vertically integrated. We have our own property management in-house. And I get a call about 3 weeks in after the tenants move in. And the property manager is like, he's really heated on the phone. He's like, hey, do you know what the F a stud is? And I said, no, what's a stud? He's like, Jesus Christ, all the cabinets just fell off the wall. Their plates are broken everywhere. They were taking a shower upstairs, and all the cabinets fell off the wall because I screwed them into each other. So one pulls, all the rest pull. Yeah, that's my story of swinging a hammer. So after that point, I hung up the hammer, and I said, that's for someone else now.
Good story. I bet you learned a lot from that. You had to probably buy him some new plates.
Yeah, definitely had to buy him some new plates and have a professional hang some cabinets.
It's all about learning lessons. And I say this to real estate investors all the time. I mean, you don't always get a single or a double, or let alone a home run. Sometimes it's negative, right? You don't always win in real estate, but you can always learn.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a win. Because if you don't do it again, and you just saved yourself, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
That's for sure. A loss is never a loss if you learn. It's only a loss. You only lose if you take that and you do it again. and then it's just shame on you. You never learned. So as long as you learn, it's a win.
As long as you learn, it's a win. Yeah, definitely. So you got through that project, and then what did you take from that? How did you change what you were doing the next time around for the next set?
So for the next like projects that we started doing, we got mentors and started learning what they were doing with their contractors, what kind of paperwork, contractor agreements they were using, the legality of it, repercussions if you didn't hit deadlines, and the payment plan, and also who's paying for materials as well. So what we did was we got this whole contractor agreement drafted up with lien release waivers saying that, the contractors can never put a lien on the property. There's deadlines, there's stipulations. If you don't hit deadlines, there's, if you're not done by X amount of date, every day that you're not done, it's $100 deduction. If there's trash on the property, if there's cigarette butts on the property, we're deducting out of your pay as well. So we had a lot of these agreements in place and notarized, and we would be like, hey, we're going to hold you to it. If you stop the job, well, now there's a clause in this that you will be responsible for the next person to come in and finish this job. We'll put a lien against your property. We'll put a lien against your business. And, eventually I will get that, unless you say you pay bankruptcy. And then we just started vetting more contractors, going through more of an interview process, checking out job sites that they had right now, asking for referrals. So that's really, what we did to get a solid team. And that didn't take, that wasn't an overnight thing either. That still took a few years to figure out the pieces and have our A team place.
Oh yeah, it is quite a process, that's for sure. And when you now have it in house, or are you still hiring third party?
So we still have a third party, but they work solely pretty much for us. So it's around 40 guys. Their team's about 40 people, and they work for us pretty much 24/7 and they have everything under their belt. So they have roofers, they have exterior, they have interior, mechanicals, everything like that. So we make sure we have enough work, on a daily basis to keep the work in front of them. And then they also do our property management maintenance as well.
Wow, you're keeping them busy.
That's for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I don't want them going anywhere else, so I have to keep the pipeline full.
No, and you've done a lot in a short amount of time.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about where you are today in November of 2023 and where you're going.
Awesome. So, right now, we're at 82, primarily all single family rentals. The biggest multifamily that we have is a triplex and 2 duplexes. Or maybe 3 duplexes. I don't know. When you get to this many doors, it's like you forget about properties you have and whatnot. That's why you always have to look at a spreadsheet of what you got. By the end of today, we'll have another 5 properties under contract, and we're actually working on a 54 property portfolio that just resurfaced on us a couple days ago. So we were negotiating that. We had a meeting with the owner about 8 months ago, and he wanted around like 5.9 million for that. And we offered 4.3 million at the time. And the owner, one of these 3 owners, laughed in our face, really laughed in our face. And it was at an office in Media, Pennsylvania. And I went through a presentation because I was like, hey, this is a big portfolio. Let me show why I came up with the offer, and, pictures of the properties. We walked 38 of them. We didn't walk all 54, but we could only get in 38 at the time. So I was like, hey, this is what our properties look like. This is what your properties look like. This is what your rents are and whatnot. And this is why we came up with our offer. And they obviously didn't like our offer at all at that time.
Right. So 54 properties. Now on that 54, what was income on there?
So currently right now it's like $718,000 gross income, which is still below market rent.
And so you take off how much for expenses?
So the way we do properties is we do full gut properties. So our maintenance is very, very low. We might factor 2% maintenance or 1% because we're doing everything new. And eventually, like that, 54 units, that will take a while to redo everything. So of course, we'll have like contingency clauses in the beginning. while we're going through that and repositioning those properties. We don't factor in anything for management right now because we have everything internal. We have the softwares and everything like that. It's just us on the back end. And then our maintenance goes right through our contracting teams. So there's not much of it.
When you're looking at a portfolio like this, what would you factor out for expenses in order to get to a net operating? That would be, see, everybody's net operating is different, right? Depending on what they put in there. So sometimes maintenance is, sometimes management's in there, sometimes it's not in there, sometimes some other expenses are in there that shouldn't be in there. So like generally, what do you use as a rule of thumb when you're looking at taking off of what the expenses are going to be to get to your net operating income so you can give an offer based on a return?
Right. So no matter what, even though on the back end I might not, a high management fee or a maintenance fee, I will always underwrite it the way it's underwritten by the bank because that's what they're going to lend on. It doesn't matter what I underwrite it as. So I always pull out like 5% vacancy. I'll do 5% management and 5% maintenance. And then from there, I'll, deduct any other cost of like insurance, anything like
Taxes.
that. And yeah, taxes. And then I'll work my way down to get the
Licenses.
NOI. Yeah, inspections, licenses, your yearly stuff. Yeah, the usual stuff. Just literally as the bank does it, I'm doing it because when I go to take that package to the bank and say, hey, I need a loan for, $3 million, they don't care what I underwrite it as. And I can fight them all day and say, hey, well, I'm doing the management. And they were like, well, what happens when you don't? What happens when something goes?
They have a set gross income. So it nets down to about how much?
So right now, after you factor out as if the bank was going to underwrite it, there would be an NOI of around 420 or 482,000. I forget the exact numbers. But mind you, all the rents across the board are anywhere between $400 and $600 under market rent on each property. They haven't been raised in years. The average 800 and maybe 1,100 when rent should be, $1,350 to $1,600. On some of the properties, they should be like $1,850. So it's very under market on the rent side. So that gross income could be a lot more.
So you offered 4.3 and they were asking
5.9 at the time. And also ARVs, after repair values on the properties 8 months ago are different than what they are today. So I had to go back through and relook at all those properties. And now I'm currently at like a 4.125 on the offer. So they came back to us a few days ago and said, hey, is that 4.3 still on the table? And I just thought that was really funny because they laughed at me 8 months ago. We could have had this done and wrapped up by now. And so we went back. They wanted a formal, and that was about 2 days ago now that we sent that offer in. So still waiting for them to review and see where it goes. But that'll put us up to 130 units, and our goal is 250 by the end of 2024.
So you're sticking with the 250.
Yeah, I say like 200 to 250 by the end of 2024.
So you have to renovate all 54.
We don't have to. So that's the thing. We've been to full gut renovations. That's what we always do and we would like to do so that we don't have to worry about any CapEx for like the next 10 to 15 years. It would just very minimal maintenance stuff, just stupid things that come up. So there's the portfolio worth, if we were to go in and fully renovate the portfolio would be worth $9.3 million with about like $850,000 in renovation. If we don't do those renovation, I estimate like around like 7 million, 7.5. So we could bump the rents without doing those. We could probably bump the rents all across the board to $1,350 without doing anything. It's not like there's anything wrong with the properties. They're just not our style and the product that we like to put out. We like to put out a specific product that we take, custom center city renovations and bring them to lower income areas in the affordable housing space. That's what we do. And we're able to do that on a budget because we have really good crews and we source product very good.
So is every house the same?
No. There's a lot of 34 3-bedrooms. There's 14 2-bedrooms, 4 4-bedrooms, 1 5-bedroom, 1 6-bedroom, and then 2 garages. So it somehow, some way, plus or minus, that's up to 54.
Gotcha. So when you do the renovation, do you have every house look the same? So you can get like that economy of scale in regards to the finishes?
Yeah, so we have like 3 different designs that we usually do. The kitchens are usually always the same. We always do dark gray lower cabinets, the soft closes, and then the white upper shaker. We always do that because the lowers get dirty and you don't want to see it on white. But then we switch up like the backsplash. And the countertops are always Carrara quartz. And we use black finishes and we use gold finishes sometimes. And then the bathrooms change periodically between like 3 or 4 different designs. We always paint everything white, and the flooring, all new PEX, all new electric, all new HVAC, windows, roof. But there's not really that much changes up. So that way we're constantly, and once a property comes up, it's demoed, we know what's going into it right away.
So you have your system, your process, and your formula.
Yep.
All things that are successful in running a company.
Yes, that's for sure.
No matter what type of company you have.
Yeah, it runs a lot smoother when you have like a product that you put out. Hey, if it's this style house, you're doing this. If it's this style house, you're doing that. When we were primarily just fixing and flipping and being all like custom and HGTV, it was always a nightmare. It was like, hey, what are we going to do here? Well, you got to figure out what you're going to do. Now that delays time. That adds more money to the budget. Things of that nature. So having a formula for every single property, which is like boom, 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 boom.
Not only expensive, but it's a drain on the.
Yes, you're not kidding. Looking at time,
you have to make too many decisions, and every time you have to make a decision, it takes energy. And at the end of the day, if you haven't made all the decisions and your decision-making skills are out, you're effed. You got to wait today. You don't realize that you only have that you can make in a day, which is why I make my food in advance. I pretty much have like my clothes picked out for the week, so I don't have to think about any decisions that aren't like right. I used to have this thing. My husband and I would call each other at the end toward mid-afternoon. What are we eating for today? What are we eating tonight? I would say chicken. Nah. Hamburger. Nah. Back and forth. Then we're in an argument. One would say, oh, I don't care. And I would say, what about chicken cutlet? No, I don't want that. Okay. Then they'd say, what about cheeseburgers? No, I don't want that. So I learned like a little while ago that was a complete waste of time. Now I actually write a weekly meal plan out and then buy the food based on that. And I start the cooking on Sunday afternoon. What does this have to do with business? It has to do everything with business. It's like you like organize, you're systematic, you have a process, you have a schedule, right? You follow. It's like there's a cadence to it. Business is the same thing. There's a cadence to it. There's a cadence to how you buy, how you flip, how you hold property. What does the process look like? What does it look like with tenants, and how you bring those people in, and how you start the relationship with them, and all that's important, right?
Absolutely.
You can make it wasting time making decisions about what kind of light you're hanging.
No, definitely not. We have all of our fixtures we honestly buy from Amazon because you save so much money. All the fixtures on Amazon, and we literally have 3 different lists that are saved in Amazon at all times, and they're the fixtures for each individual style of property, so that we know when we go in, hey, we need to order all the fixtures for 123 Main Street. It's going to be X, design. We just hit submit, we order everything, it gets shipped, and we know it's ready to rock. And then the same thing with, our tile design and our flooring, our LVP. We have, everything in our little back offices of like Floor and Decor, Lowe's Pro, Home Depot Pro, and it's just click and order, and we get it delivered.
Yeah, it's excellent. Good. Nice and organized.
Yep.
So what keeps you up at night?
Finding more deals, raising capital. I mean, that's not really much. It's just always, I just think it's that. Hey, when's the next deal going to come along? It was funny. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I usually get a few, like at least one property under contract, at least one. And just from like the referral base that we've built that, bring us deals because they know we can close and they don't have to worry about it. And it was literally last week or the week before I had no deals, and I literally was going nuts. I was like, oh my God, the market's shifting. It's drying up out there. I don't have one thing under contract this week. That was keeping me up that week. That was for sure. But literally, last week was when the 54 unit came in. And then 2 days ago is, 2 property package came in. And then yesterday, 3 property packages came in. So it's like, yeah, sometimes there's an off week, but then it literally hits you like a brick shed sometimes. And it's like, hey, you're going to be closing on 15 deals next month or however many you get in the pipeline in a short amount of time. So it happens, but nothing really makes me lose sleep.
No, hopefully it will continue.
Yeah, we actually had our first experience of somebody setting one of our houses on fire. And honestly, that didn't really faze me either. I was like, okay, well, this is what we talk about time. We talk about how our investors are protected because we put them on the hazard insurance. We get full replacement value. The highest grade of DP3 rental insurance. And we got a text message. We bought a portfolio of 8 properties last month. And none of these tenants were paying. They were terrible tenants, but we're like, hey, this is another tool in our toolbox now. We're going to start buying properties from landlords that have terrible tenants. And we're going to go through the eviction process. We tried it out with one at a time, and we started getting really good at it. We started going through the eviction process ourselves, not hiring any attorneys or anything. And we kept winning case after case after case. We started the whole eviction process on these 8 properties. It's consists of 2 city blocks. So it's like an L. We own the whole corner of one side and the whole corner of the other. We got an email back from one of the tenants saying, hey, we're going to move out on, XYZ date. But by the way, someone torched your house. This was an email at like 9 o'clock in the morning on a weekday. We're like, hey, this lady is just pissed off. She wants to get under her skin and tell us that somebody set her house on fire. And we're like, whatever, no big deal. Like, she's probably just kidding. And then around 1 p.m., it's like turning in my mind. I'm like, what if she's serious and someone really did set her house on fire? I'm not saying there was nobody living in this unit either. Nobody lived in this unit. It was a vacant unit. And my thoughts is like, there's no way. There's nobody living there, so why would there be a fire? Well, I think these tenants, they weren't the best looking when we went through the initial walkthrough. They looked like a very rough bunch that you don't want to mess with. And we eventually drive by and we know this property is totally torched. The windows are bashed out. The flame marks are on the outside of the brick. And we're like, oh my God. Nobody from the fire department called. Nobody from the city called. Nobody from the police department called. We had no idea this ever happened until the tenant that we were picking out was emailed us, and we're like, okay, this is what we prepare for this. We'll get through it. It's just a challenge that we're going to go through and conquer. And now we can say we actually experienced it to our investors and our peer group. Like most people say, hey, like we're protected because if a fire happens, blah blah blah. Well, we're actually going through now, so we can actually say we've been in the mud with this situation. But the thing was that really ticked me off about it, not so much the fire, was that there were squatters on the first floor. Now, mind you, when we walked through this property, this place was empty. When we drove by, it looked like a full family was living on the first floor. So we sent our contractor over there to go check it out. There's still people inside when he went there to check out the place, to see the damage. They didn't even move. They must have saw that it was a vacant property. They moved right in on the first floor. They didn't give a shit that the whole upstairs is completely torched. There's no plumbing. The electric's fried. They're like, hey, we just put all of our stuff on the first floor and we're just camping out. That's what got to me. I was like, gee whiz, this is nuts. We think like, the old landlord might have went back and like rented the property out or something like that. We don't know. That's something that I may lose sleep over, but it was, we're still going through that process, getting like the underwriters and the adjusters to, get the insurance payout and go through with all that. So that's the I think the craziest thing in the last couple of months.
It's always some nutty thing going on. So what city are these properties in?
So those ones are in Chester City in Delaware
Okay.
County.
Yeah. And where are the majority?
All like Delaware counties, like southern Delaware County. So Ridley, Prospect Park, Norwood, Essington, Woodland, Chester, Lansdowne, that area. And we're looking to get into North Wilmington in Delaware State as well. That's like our 2020. We're hoping to get like solid foundation by the end of this year, get like 5 properties down there by the end of the year. And then that we can get our feet wet. And then in 2024, we can really ramp a new construction team up down in the city of Wilmington.
Awesome. So you mentioned some mentors. Is there anybody that you would say is like really impacted your career, whether it's a coach or besides family that have mentored you through this process?
I mean, if you can see behind me, I've read a lot of here. So they're like my silent mentors that, I don't talk to.
So what
But
are some of your favorite books you would recommend?
I'm really big into like capital raising book. That's what I really like. I would probably say like Matt Fairclough's book. His capital raising book is really good. And then Hunter Thompson's capital raising book is really good as well. As for real estate books, you can only learn so much.
Whatever, doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be real estate. What kind of book that it's made an impact? Or podcast.
I mean, we can go with the originals that I'm sure everybody says, but it all started from these 2 books, was Think and Grow Rich and Rich Dad Poor Dad. Honestly, they were my first 2 books I read in college when I was in network marketing. They were like the books that we had to read, network marketing. So they were the first like that really got my mind turning even more. But for real estate, you can only learn so much real estate in books, and the rest of it, you have to go out there and actually do it. I mean, as with anything that you learn, you have to go out there and do it. But
you can't learn how to drive a car by sitting in the office.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't learn how to ride a bike driving a car.
Nope. And you don't ask a plumber to do it either.
So you have to take the action regardless of whatever business that you're in. In your case, it's finding deals, sourcing deals, getting funding, closing on them, property management, managing the process and all of that. If you don't take the action, regardless, you're not going to build your business. Doesn't matter what business you're in.
That's for sure.
When people say they get to a certain point and then they start to coast, the coasting is what keeps us actually going backwards when we're coasting. Right?
Yeah.
There's no such thing as staying the same. No. You're growing or you're going backwards.
Yeah, you're either growing or you're dying. I forget who the scientist was, but he said object in motion, or one of those
stays
things.
In motion.
Stays in motion. And he said an object not in motion is technically dying. So if we're not growing, we're actually going backwards.
Going backwards. So growth happens when you're not comfortable. It's hard to grow when you're comfortable, when you're like fat and happy.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's a difficult thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, that's for sure. They want to be comfy and sunshines and rainbows when that's not where you find your true potential.
It is not. It is not. So we'll say sometimes we have meetings standing up. We usually like to sit down. So if they're all comfortable in these like comfortable chairs, but if you have to stand there for an hour, you're like, can we get this thing over in a half an hour?
Yep, I'm with you there. When we get comfy in our home office, we have standing desks. We pump that up and we stand because it's like, hey, you can't get lazy, you can't get comfortable. You got to keep grinding and get through the day.
That's right. Keep going, as they say.
Yep.
Keep on trucking.
Keep on trucking, yeah.
Keep on trucking. Well, Jake, pleasure to have you on the Be the Solution podcast today. How can somebody reach out to you and find you if they want to ask questions or talk to you about properties or investing? So
there's actually a few ways, Maria. You can go to one of 2 of our websites. One is investinwithjakeandleanna.com, or they can go to pennycapital.com. We have free resources on there, videos, blogs, PDFs on learning how to invest and creating wealth without Wall Street. And then you can either reach out on Facebook or Instagram. And my little @tag is Jake Penny Real Estate.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jake. It's been a pleasure speaking with you today, getting to know you a little bit more and learning about your journey and keep on being the solution, Jake.
Thank you, Maria. Appreciate it.